Good morning, kids. Today we're working on Unit 1, Lesson 2 homework page. We have 7 questions here, and we're going to go through a few of them together, and we're going to be talking again about equivalent fractions, okay? We're going to start out, and we're just going to have a quick discussion about equivalent fractions, and one of the ways that you can visualize or see equivalent fractions, and an easy one for people to see would be 1/2. And what I would like you to do is, in your mind, think about equivalent fractions to 1/2. When I think about 1/2 and I want to create equivalent fractions, there's a lot of things that you can do. You can multiply top and bottom, or some of you may look at your math board and think, okay, I can work my way right down my math board and figure out the equivalent fractions to 1/2. And if I took 1/2 and I multiplied the top and the bottom by the number 3, if I multiplied top by 3 and bottom by 3, an equivalent fraction would be 3, because 1 times 3 is 3, and 2 times 3 is 6. So 3/6 is an equivalent fraction. I can continue on and make a long chain of equivalent fractions, multiplying either the first number here, the first fraction, or I can multiply the new fraction, the new equivalent fraction. And I'm going to multiply it by 2. And remember, whatever you do to the top, to the numerator, you have to do to the denominator on the bottom. So 3 times 2 is equal to 6, and 6 times 2 is equal to 12. And so 6/12 is an equivalent fraction for 3/6 and 1/2. You can continue on this chain, and you can multiply 6/12 by any number you can choose. I'm going to multiply it by 4 this time. So I'm going to multiply the numerator and the denominator both by the same number. 6 times 4 is equal to 24, and 12 times 4 is equal to 48. And I know that 24/48 is an equivalent fraction to 6/12, as well as 3/6 and 1/2. And this is a fraction chain for 1/2. And again, you can continue on and on to develop a longer chain. The number that we used in each of these, like here we multiplied the top and the bottom by 4. Here we multiplied the top and bottom by 2. And here we multiplied top and bottom by 3. That number is called the multiplier. We're going to go ahead and do one more practice on using a multiplier to find equivalent fractions. We'll use 2/3 as our example. So we have the fraction 2/3, and we are going to use a multiplier to find an equivalent fraction. In this case, I'm actually just going to extend my fraction bar, and I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by one multiplier, meaning you have to do the same to the top and bottom, and I'm going to choose a multiplier of 2. And it's going to be a multiplier of 2, so I'm going to times the top and the bottom by 2. And I'm going to work my way straight across as I do it. 2 times 2 is equal to 4. 3 times 2 is equal to 6. So we know then that 4/6 is an equivalent fraction to 2/3. And we used a multiplier of 2. Now we're going to discuss unsimplifying. And so we have another vocabulary term here, and it's called unsimplify. And that just means we're making an equivalent fraction by multiplying the numerator and the denominator of a given fraction by the same number. And that's exactly what we just did there. In order to unsimplify, we're using a multiplier to give us an equivalent fraction by multiplying the top numerator, the bottom denominator by the same number. We're going to continue on now to the homework, and it is page 3 in your Math Expressions student workbook. And so if you would make sure that you have page 3 out, we're going to start working through parts of page 3 today. Number 1 says write a chain of equivalent fractions for the shaded parts, and that's what we reviewed at the beginning of this lesson. And this chain of unit fractions is drawn out for you in a picture form. And so you just need to read that picture. And what I mean by that is you need to look at the picture, and we're going to look at the first one here, and we can see that there are two parts. We have a shaded part and a white part. And so we have one hole, which is the one whole circle, and it is broken up into two parts. And so the first one is going to be one hole that's broken up into two pieces. So the first equivalent fraction is 1/2. The second equivalent fraction here is the same one whole broken up into 4 pieces. You can see that there are 2 shaded pieces and 2 white pieces. And so this one is broken up into 4 pieces. And of those 4 pieces, okay, that's the denominator, 4, it's broken up into 4 pieces. And of those 4 pieces, how many are shaded? Well, 2. So we have 2/4. And 2/4 is equivalent to 1/2. We're going to move on to the next one here, and you can see that the next one whole piece or one whole circle is broken up into 6 equal pieces. And so we have 6 pieces, which means 6 is our denominator. That's how many pieces it's broken up into. And now we have to go and look at how many pieces are shaded out of the 6. And we can count them up. We have 1, 2, 3 pieces shaded, and so we have 3/6. And you can see that 3/6 is also equal to 2/4 and equal to 1/2. And so we're continuing our chain of equivalent fractions. I'm going to have you finish the last 2 in this chain of equivalent fractions on your own. In our next section here, we have 3 different chains of equivalent fractions, and it says in the directions, use the number lines to complete exercises 2 through 7. And so we have these number lines which have chains of equivalent fractions in them. And we're going to go through and use these number lines here to solve numbers 2 through 7. And I'm going to show you how to do this. It says, what fraction is marked by the star? And so we have to find the star here, and we can see that it's right here. And that star is located directly in the center of 2/8 and 4/8. And if we look at the rest of the number line, we can see that we go from 0/8 to 2/8 to 4/8 to 6/8 to 8/8, which is one whole. And so we have to identify what's falling in between each of those. And so we would know that if this first one is 0/8, the second one is going to be 1/8. The third one is 2/8. The fourth one, where the star is, would then be 3/8. And you could finish filling out this entire number line, which I will do, because then we go from 3/8 to 4/8. What comes next? 5/8. And then we have 6/8. And then the next one that's blank is 7/8, and then we have 8/8. And so we've filled out the number line completely for eighths. You can go ahead and do the same thing with your fourths and your 12ths, and you'll know each line or tick mark on the number line. You can label each one, and it'll make solving the rest of 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 go really smoothly for you. And when we answer number 2, which we figured out number 2 by figuring out that the star is 3/8, and so the line here on number 2, which I don't have enough room for, is going to be 3/8. Now, when you read through, you have what fraction is marked by the heart, doing the same thing we just did. If you have 3/4 of a cup of flour, how many eighths do you have? And that's going to mean that you're going to have to find the 3/4 on the number line on top and compare it to what is directly below it in the second number line here. And they'll find your answer that way. If you have 3/12 of an orange, how many fourths do you have? There you're comparing fourths, this number line, and 12ths. And then you can do greater than or less than, or equal to, and give equivalent fractions. And when it says give equivalent fractions, you want to go back and look at the equivalent fractions that we talked about in the number chain that we did in the beginning of our lesson today. When you have finished this activity, you can go ahead and turn your work in, and have a good day.